Right now, we are sitting on a key pivot point that could decide so much about the future of Altseason. It could decide whether it even shows up. It could decide if we see something similar to like what we saw in the November-December timeframe, where we saw a somewhat limited short-term rotation, but then ultimately ended up going higher and higher on Bitcoin dominance than we'd even seen prior up to that point. So there's a lot of different things that could happen there. There's also a lot of different things that the altcoin market is showing us right now that could be very, very impactful, and some things that we need to wait on to really get clarification on what we could end up seeing. So anyway, let's go on ahead and we're going to dive right in talking about all of the different things going on in today's market. First off, I did want to take a look at the crypto bubbles just to show what is happening within the overall crypto market. Here we can see it's a red day. Basically everything is down other than a couple of different things. We are into a little bit of a sell-off right now. That we had a couple other green ones, but they've kind of pushed down a little bit further, and some of the like very slightly green ones did turn to red. So this is definitely a bit of a further sell-off within the market. If we look at the week, we could see the majority of the market sitting red now. We do still have a couple of the major gainers sitting into green, but the majority of the market is in fact in red. However, if we look at the month, we are still seeing very, very green moves here. So the red moves that we have seen are, they make a little bit of sense, right? I mean, we have seen some really, really strong moves to the upside. And so the fact that we are seeing a little bit of retracement, at least in my opinion, doesn't really mean it's all that big of a deal. Now, the other thing that we can see that's pretty important to note here is we actually started really peaking up. We never got into Altseason, however, but we did really start peaking up with the high hitting at 59. We have now pulled back down to 45. So we are kind of in this range that we saw kind of in that mid-January to mid-February time frame. We'll have to see if we kind of pull right back down immediately into Bitcoin season, or if we can kind of bounce around in this area kind of in the middle, and then maybe we can move it up into Altseason. Really hard to say for sure, but at least for right now, that's most of what we're seeing in the crypto market. Is there's a lot of indecision going on right now, and I think that's pretty fair to say with just what we're seeing with a lot of different coins as well. Now, the next thing that I want to take a look at, now that we're seeing kind of we aren't really in Altseason, we can see something fairly similar here with Bitcoin dominance. Now, Bitcoin dominance is really important to see here because we could see something pretty important that happened or is happening right now. We went and basically saw this down only move where then we then kind of peaked up a little bit as a bit of a retrace on Bitcoin dominance. Now, what this part meant was kind of one of two things. Bitcoin went up or altcoins went down. We haven't really seen Bitcoin go up. We actually have kind of seen Bitcoin move down a little bit. So this is kind of an indication that altcoins did see a bit of a sell-off. And then right now we're seeing a little bit of some recovery. And I think right now at this point, Bitcoin is kind of starting to dip a little bit further down. And so this is kind of a combination of, I think, Bitcoin going down more than altcoins are. Although we have seen that altcoins are going down as well. Bitcoin is just going down more so than that. So things looking okay here. I think we would like to keep this level of resistance. We have been rejected by it once so far. We also can see on the RSI we are back into kind of the normal area rather than oversold. So we are starting to see things kind of recover a little bit, particularly with Bitcoin dominance. We also can see from the Bollinger Bands we're up it towards a decent bit in the middle of it. We are not pushing the bottom like we were for several days here, even more like over a week. So that's kind of how we're looking at Bitcoin dominance and what we are seeing here. Ideally, we want to hold this level of resistance and continue to maybe put a couple more rejections in there, and then we will hopefully continue to see a run to the downside. But again, we'll just have to tell and wait over time. Right now, if we look at the market overview, you can see a whole bunch of different things going on. Now, of course, with open interest is actually near all-time highs. So we are looking very good there. There is still a lot of interest and demand within crypto more generally. We also can see on the RSI heat map, we are at 50.06. So we're basically right at neutral. You can also see the majority of altcoins coming back into the neutral territory. There are still a couple in strong. There are still a very, very few up and overbought. And then we also have a couple in weak and oversold too. But as you can see, the vast majority of the crypto market is sitting kind of within this neutral zone, which is why we have an RSI of almost exactly even within the top 100 coins. So that is a pretty good thing to see. We also can see here on the crypto fear and greed index, we are now down to 71. We are still in a greed market. I would imagine this probably changes a little bit over the next couple of weeks, particularly if we continue to see more of what we're seeing right now. We may expect to see this to cool down into the neutral zone is kind of maybe what I'm expecting. Unless we see a really, really strong sell-off from Bitcoin, I'm not seeing this getting into fear. We've seen that particularly over like February, March, April. Bitcoin held up all right, while altcoins were just getting absolutely trashed. And we only got into fear a couple of different times. So, I do think that we'll probably go back down into neutral, or it is possible that we go back down into neutral. But I think at least right now, the market is good enough that fear kind of remains out of the question, at least in the immediate future. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know for sure. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at, of course, is this liquidation map. You could see here, we are actually on the 1 day showing that it is better for the market to move up because there's more to liquidate on the upside. We are also seeing something similar here on the 7 day as well. This one actually looking a little bit more apparent. We could see a very, very large number of liquidations coming in, kind of up into that 120,000 range. So if we did see a move up to 120,000, there would be a pretty strong move. However, if you do look to the immediate downside here, there is always the possibility that we continue to move a little bit further to the downside. You can see a move to about 113,000 would liquidate $4 billion from the longs. So there is definitely still a very, very high possibility that we continue a move to the downside. And if we look back at the 1 day, you could see something very similar here. 113.5 liquidates about 2.67 billion. So lots of money still kind of on the immediate downside. So it wouldn't be super surprising to me if we did actually continue a little bit further move down. Again, you never know for sure. It's almost impossible to know for certain because I kind of equate a lot of this to kind of the musings of the market makers and whatever they want to do. And I don't know exactly what they do, but we could see we are definitely not out of the woods from a short-term perspective because there is so much liquidity still on the immediate downside. Now, it would not surprise me if we go sweep all this liquidity and then start to move back up, because we could assume at that point the market is going to get more bearish and then more shorts are going to pile in for, potentially a move back to the upside and sweeping all that liquidity as well. So it's really, really hard to say for sure exactly. If we do look at the 30-day as well, we also can see that more shorts are starting to pile in. We are almost $15 billion. We are still actually predicting kind of a move to the downside from the 30-day. So there is, and that I think also kind of adds to the claim. Even right here on the 30-day, about $113,000 Bitcoin liquidates over $6 billion. So there is still very much that possibility where if we sweep down to this 113,000 range, we then could sweep back up. And then, like I said, we've swept this liquidity, more shorts are going to pile in, and then we move back up and kind of clean out all those shorts. Plus, if we did do that, you might notice that the total here is about 20.5 billion. If we sweep through about 6 to 6.25 billion, that would actually officially put the green, like on the side that it would make more sense to move to, right? So at that point, we would have more alignment that it would make sense for the price to move up because there are more shorts to get liquidated, and this would make sense through the 1, the 7, and the 30-day time frame. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. Overall, I think this all looks kind of pretty. It looks pretty good. I think we're getting towards the bottom of this potential sell-off. Again, I don't know for sure. I don't know when. I don't know where. I don't know any of that. But at least from what we're seeing from some of these kind of fundamental indicators, I would expect that we continue to potentially see move a bit further down, and then potentially we see another bounce back to the upside. So we'll have to see for sure. If we do look at the X feed that we have going on here, we can see that President Trump is saying that most tariff trade deals will be done by August 1st. Again, this is kind of like the like final. Again, who knows? Just kind of given what we've seen so far, but who knows? But so far, at least, this is the final deadline for tariffs. So if a country does not have a tariff deal worked out, then they will get the kind of initial tariff that was set out back in April, and that will be just kind of what it is. So I think that this is going to be something that could cause some potential volatility in the markets if a majority of trade deals are done by August 1st, and they're really good trade deals, and they're pretty reasonable seeming from what it seems like. Then this could be very, very good for the markets, because one of the biggest kind of rakes for us to continue to step on is essentially some recurring fears coming back from inflation, some recurring fears coming back from kind of these trade war type of things. That is kind of a major risk that does remain. And so if we start to see a bunch of trade deals roll in over the next couple weeks, or I guess next week at this point, we are getting towards the end of July, then that is something that would be pretty important to understand and pretty important to kind of note down, because this could be a key catalyst in either direction. I think it's very important that we see that. And given kind of the consequence and the magnitude of this type of trade or this type of deal, we may not see much coming out of the crypto ecosystem until after this, because we're kind of at a little bit of that pivot point right now. So I think it's going to be really important to keep very, very close eyes on what's going on here. And of course, we will keep updated on all of this. If you stay tuned to the channel, you can like, you can subscribe, you can do all that type of stuff. You can stick around for the more valuable content that comes out every single day. So if that is something that you are interested in, just feel free to do that. Now, moving along, we have another thing happening next week as well. So again, lots happening kind of within the next 7 days that could be very, very impactful to the crypto market and how various investments that we have or maybe looking to have could perform. So here we could see next week the Fed will decide whether to cut, hike, or keep rates unchanged. There have been rumors, again, who knows, what comes out of the rumor mill, whether it's true or not, but we have heard that President Trump and the Fed Powell, they were essentially touring a Fed facility earlier the other week, and they had said, or Trump has said that, Powell now understands the importance of cutting rates, and he's now more kind of open to cutting rates potentially. Again, who knows for sure? I think what we see in July is we almost certainly don't see a rate cut. I would be actually quite surprised if we did see a rate cut. I think mainly just because of what we're seeing from kind of the hawkishness still within the market. There's nothing really that is broken or requires rate cuts at this point. So I think that there's a level of probably not needing them quite yet. I still also think if you look at the prediction markets and stuff, basically nobody's expecting a rate cut in July. I still think that September might be the one that's, or I guess in August, I still think September might be the one that potentially comes around to where we get that first rate cut. Again, it's really, really hard to say and hard to know for sure, just because if you think about it, like rate cuts are usually done to stimulate the economy in some way. And with stocks and asset prices pushing near all-time highs, what necessarily needs to be stimulated, right? I mean, that's kind of the question that I have if we look at it from a purely like economic fundamentals perspective. There's nothing really to stimulate. There's nothing necessarily broken in the market per se. Now, it would be nice to get interest rates lower, particularly for, kind of the lower and middle class. I know that unaffordability has kind of gone to like historic highs and things like that. So maybe that's the argument that we could see for that. But I think from a pure, like if you're sitting in a vacuum and just looking at asset prices, there's nothing in the market that needs to be stimulated or needs rates cut further. So I am interested to kind of see what comes out of that. And I think it will be very impactful on kind of the future of crypto over the next 6, 9, 12 months, most importantly. We also do have the Clarity Bill, which is kind of like the crypto market structure bill coming. That I think the plan is to have done by kind of mid to end of October. So that is also something that, again, not in the immediate term, but it will be very important to see kind of what happens there as well, because that could be another thing that has major impacts on what happens within the crypto market. So overall, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, of course, a like and a subscribe does help. If you are looking to trade, I did not get to look over any of the trade charts or anything today. We basically the big thing or the big notable thing is we have seen Bitcoin kind of sweep lows. As we looked in the liquidation charts, we got to see it sweep lows and clear a lot of leverage. There is some leverage that remains, so we could potentially see another move to the downside. But again, I think we're quite close to the bottom here. So anyway, that's kind of what we're seeing. If you did find the information useful, of course, you could turn the notification bell on as well. That will keep you up to date with any of the videos that I am releasing if you are wanting to kind of stick around and stay tuned with what develops in the alt market overall. Also, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, whatever, just drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So let me know if you have any questions and I will respond to you in that way. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.